Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Lawrence with Jamf. I'm an education leadership executive, and I'm thrilled to be at my first ever JNUC and presenting to you on a topic I care a lot about, which is question formulation technique. The title of the session is Asking the Right Questions, Unleash Every Student's Potential. And it's one that I am very passionate about, as I mentioned. You can find me on Twitter at Tech Maverick. And as I mentioned, I'm an education leadership executive, which means I get to work with educators all day, every day at Jamf. I feel like I've got the best job here ever. Sometimes some folks say that I look a little like this guy, and here's the proof. I did a check on celebslike.me, and yes, in fact, I'm a 99% match for Ricky Gervais. Unfortunately, I don't have the Golden Globes or Emmys that he has, but I would say that I do have slightly better teeth, so there's that. But hopefully it's not too distracting that you think you're looking at Ricky Gervais without a British accent this whole time. With that, I want to do three things in my session today. I want to teach you something. Hopefully I can delight you a little bit, and I want to give you something before we end. And what's really cool about JNUC this year is that I get to be in two places at the same time. I'm here presenting to you, and I'm also live responding to the comments that all of you are going to be making during this session, just because I'm that talented. No, just kidding. We actually pre-recorded this, and I'm able to participate fully and engage with you in the chat while this is happening in real time, because we pre-recorded it some time ago. So it's the magic of simulcast. So with that, let's dive in. This session is going to be all about inquiry, creativity, and innovation. And one of the things that I discovered in the last couple of years that ties all three of these together is actually a punctuation mark. Not these two, but a combination of these two. So this is, of course, on the left, we've got a question mark, and on the right, we've got an exclamation mark. And I've seen these used in education before, combined to actually have students respond to their own in their own thinking in metacognitive ways. So you would actually put up three punctuation marks and ask the students to respond to learning with one of these three punctuation marks. And you pass out stickies, or you could do this digitally on iPads, have them respond to those things that surprised them or that drew their attention under the exclamation mark column. And then those that they have questions about, they would put in the middle column there. Or if they want to know more about it, they'd put their thoughts on it. And then in the far right column, you'd have connections, or they feel challenged by this information. You know, I learned something new here, but I didn't know that this could happen this way, or that science worked that way, or that language, you know, that you conjugate verbs that way. So whatever the content is, this is a way that's a known way of engaging and responding to learning and having students think about their own thinking, or metacognition, as they call it. But no, what I'm going to actually suggest is a new punctuation mark, and it's a combination of these two. It's an actual punctuation mark that was invented some time ago, and it looks like this. You take the one, you add the other one, and you get an INTERROBANG. Yes, an INTERROBANG. It's a real word. I didn't make it up. In fact, another guy made it up. His name is Martin K. Spector. He was a editor and an advertising executive, and he came up with this concept mostly because he got tired of putting the two next to each other after a sentence that was expressing surprise and excitement at the same time. And so he came up with this concept of INTERROBANG. And for those of you that know technical terms, it actually has an ASCII designation. It's on the keyboard. You can hit it yourself and paste it in, and you can put it on your phones. You can put it on other things, and it's pretty cool. And I like it because, not just because it was this relatively new punctuation mark that I didn't know about until recently, but I like it because I feel like this is what our classrooms should inspire in students. So here's an example. You did what? Right? It's a combination of excitement and surprise. And there it is. You can see the INTERROBANG show up. And there's even an inverted one for Latin languages that use the upside down or inverted punctuation mark, and that's called a nabetnary. And if you haven't figured it out, nabetnary is INTERROBANG spelled backwards. But all that to say that education should inspire this enthusiastic curiosity that I think is exemplified by this punctuation mark, the INTERROBANG. Here's what it looks like in real life. This is my friend, Dr. Laura Spencer. She's a customer down in San Diego area, and she invited me down to a open house that the students were hosting. The sixth grade students were studying human systems, and they were studying circulatory system, nervous system, digestive system. And instead of the sort of rote memorization that unit often has, where kids learn about the systems and then each kid is put into a team and that team studies one system and then does a presentation. No. This school took a wildly different approach. What they did is they presumed that climate change would drastically change the world's climate. And with those changes, humans, who are known to be adaptable, like many animals, we adjust, we adapt. And how would our bodies need to adapt to survive this new climate changed reality? And so the teachers all worked together. They actually connected the students with researchers at local universities in San Diego. They actually reached out to universities in Australia. They used current, up-to-the-minute data to analyze how the planet would change based on current models in the future. And then they designed for their systems what adaptations would have to happen. In this case, I think what we're looking at here is the respiratory system. How would our lungs need to change to be able to breathe and process oxygen when it's been polluted or in a different environment? And so, by the way, no stuffed animals were harmed in the making of this project. This bear had a full recovery. That's just tape. But what they did here is they taped bottles to represent, much like our stomachs. Animal stomachs have multiple chambers, and our heart has multiple chambers. They said the lung would actually need to adapt and develop multiple chambers to process out the toxins in the atmosphere. So that's what they're representing here with the breathing tube and then the 4 chambers. And then they have the balloon there to actually show what it looks like. So these students were thinking and imagining what these systems would have to do to change, to adapt. And to be able to even consider that, you have to fully understand the systems. So the students were actually actively engaged, asking questions in order to learn about the systems of the human body. And this is the best type of student engagement. And so it gets to the core of my presentation about asking questions, and even more so, staying in the question. Instead of thinking about what's the right answer here, is it C, is it A, is it B? There is no multiple choice. Instead, we ask students to stay in the question and really explore different dimensions of the problem. And this is a perfect example. Here's another example. It's my friend Ramsey Musalam. He's a science teacher up in the Bay Area, and he was invited to give a TED Talk in New York a few years back. Chris Anderson actually called him directly and invited him. And once he found out that he wouldn't have to miss school because it was scheduled during spring break, he was on board. He's just a huge, big kid and didn't want to miss teaching his students. So what he does is he believes in 3 rules to spark learning. He actually wrote a book with a similar title to that. And in his TED Talk, he gives examples about how he conducts his class as a teacher. And what he does is a variation of the flipped classroom model, where he would, instead of sending home a recorded lecture, he sends home a recorded video of some phenomena happening. And I'll show you what this looks like in a moment. But he has the students watch the video and imagine and research and theorize why that phenomena is happening. So here's one in action. I stripped the audio, but you see how the flame changes color when he puts different things there? And then look, the light bulb turns on when he lifts that beaker up into the rods. Why is this happening? And all he really asks a student is, explain this phenomena. Tell me your theory about why this is happening. And the students then will do the research. Now they're hooked, right? They're trying to figure out, why did the light bulb turn on? Why did the flame change color? And they come in the next day with their best theories. In some of these cases, the students are literally running into the room because they want to get their answer, their theory up on the board first so that they can earn the credit for having got it. How many teachers could say that they have students running into the classroom to share their learning? But that's what happens when curiosity comes first. That's Ramsey's first rule. He encourages that curiosity by sending home this mysterious video with a phenomena or some other experience that he asks them to theorize about. The second one is you have to embrace the mess. As I mentioned, students were running into the room. This is not a quiet classroom. Learning is loud in Ramsey's classroom. And it is, I think, in many classrooms where teachers embrace the mess. And so it's one that, as a longtime educator myself, it's difficult to get around. You want quiet, you want orderly, kids in rows. Not so. Not so in Ramsey's classroom. Not so with the research that we've seen in terms of student learning. The third rule is practice reflection. And this one's key. If you just have a messy, loud classroom with kids being curious, it would certainly be fun. Kids would show up. It certainly would be engaging, and I'm sure they would be learning. But the reflection is key for them to think back on what they've learned exactly. How did they learn it? And if their theory was wrong, for instance, why was it wrong? What did they miss? Did they miss the change of color a certain way? Did they miss that there were two rods and not one? I didn't teach science. I taught English, so you'd have to ask Ramsey. But they would then, through that reflective process, really learn about their learning, learn about, in his case, the scientific process. I believe this can be applied to any subject area, any curricular area. And if you want to watch his video, I put a link there, bit.ly/Ramsey TED. And it is case sensitive, so you got to have a capital R and a capital TED. But it's a 6-minute video. I highly recommend it. It's worth your time to go check that out. bit.ly/Ramsey TED. And he's a good guy. I think you won't regret it. So what that brings me to now is question formulation technique. And question formulation technique was developed by the Right Question Institute. It's free for educators. It is a nonprofit itself. And they even set up a website with a shelf of resources at rightquestion.org/education if you want to go check it out. But what it identifies is a simple 4-step process for you to engage your students in asking the right question. And it gets them to stay in the question, as I mentioned before, and it ultimately yields a deeper understanding of whatever concept you're going to be introducing or whatever concept you're discussing. When I first experienced this, it was the words up on the board were the prompt, or what we call a cue focus, and it was confirmation bias. And it was a room full of adults, so we knew what confirmation bias was, but we had to go through this process to develop a whole list of questions, and you'll see in just a second what that looks like. But what I would say is, for me, it got me to dive deeper than I ever would have if I had not had this process to guide me through the question formulation technique. I actually was honored to co-write an article on this topic with my good friend Lainey Rowell, an Apple Distinguished Educator, Lainey, and it was published by Edutopia just in August, last month, August 3rd, it went live. And if you want to go check that out, it details what I'm going to be sharing with you in this presentation, but in a written format you could revisit if you'd like. And that is also in a bit.ly. It's bit.ly/Q-answer. I don't know why I put a hyphen in there, but just to complicate things, I suppose. But it's bit.ly/Q-answer if you want to go check the article out. So here, are you ready? We're going to go through this process together. And I know it's weird because I'm pre-recorded, but I'm actually here live in the chat room with you. So I'll be engaging you in chat. So go ahead and dive in with your questions and share them in the chat. We actually have set up a Padlet that you can use, and I'll be there as well. I'm going to be everywhere. And you can pose your questions there, and we will together go through the QFT process. So here we go. Here's my prompt for you. This is a video. There's no audio. And look what happens. I'm in a hotel. I open up the door. What do I see? It's a robot. A robot is waiting at my door. So my question to you is, what questions do you have with this? This is what's called a cue focus. In this case, it's a video, and it should get you thinking. Much like Ramsey's video got the kids thinking about what's this scientific phenomena, I want you to think about, why could there be a robot at my door? What's going on here? What questions do you have is the question. Now, for you in the classroom with your students, you would then set a clock on the timer on your iPad and start ticking it down. You could, depending on the grade level, you could give them 2 minutes at the minimum. You can give them 5 or 10 minutes if you really want them to dive deep, or if they're youngers and they're having trouble typing in some of the things. So the 4 steps are, here they are, and this, by the way, is the link to the Padlet, so you could start answering these yourself. Ask as many questions as you can. Do not stop to discuss, judge, or answer the questions. Write down every question is exactly as it's stated, and change any statement into a question. So I'm using Padlet for this. You could use many different tools for this. You could even use Jamf Teacher, which I'll talk about a little later, as a way of collecting student feedback. One thing that's really powerful to note about this from a teacher's perspective is I'm an extrovert. I like to speak, I like to be heard, and I found that in my early years of teaching, I favored the extroverts in my classroom. I thought that if they were loud and raising their hand and wanting to participate, they were the ones that were learning. I've since learned that that's my own bias. I was not properly engaging the introverts in my classroom. And this is what I love about question formulation technique, is it involves all students equally. The quieter ones that like to be contemplative and just think on their own and write stuff down, as well as the ones that have lots of answers that want to shout them out. Get them focused, have them write it down, and then they'll have their chance to shout out those answers a little later, as you'll see. So take some time. I've been speaking here. You can use this time to put your questions on that Padlet, and I'll be jumping in the chat with you to discuss. So now, the next step, step 2, look at the questions you've posed. Ask yourself how many of these are open-ended, meaning that they can't be answered with a yes or no answer. So why questions are open-ended. How is another great question word that generates an open-ended question. And the second part, the closed questions, those are ones that can be answered with a yes or no. Is the robot safe, right? That's a yes or no question. Is the robot speaking? It's a yes or no question. So a lot of those sort of is or would questions. Would is actually an open-ended one. So that's the second step, is to analyze your own questioning. Okay, so I'm going to give some time for that. And then the next step is to pick one open-ended question and make it closed. And pick one closed question and make it open-ended. So you're actually changing the question. And what I'd suggest you do here is go into the Padlet and then comment on the question itself with the revised version of it. So if you asked, is the robot friendly? Go in and change that question to, I wonder if the robot is friendly, or what would give me a clue if the robot is friendly or hostile? Like, that's a way of changing a closed question into an open-ended question. And then the opposite is tricky as well, but flipping a open-ended question into a yes/no closed question. So go ahead and do that with 2 questions. I'll give you a little time for that. Watching my timer click through. Okay. And the final step is reflection. But before we get there, I want to have you think about the most important question you've asked and share that out. And we'll use the actual chat room for that. So go ahead and share out in chat what you think your most important question is, and post that in the chat that I'm monitoring, not in the Padlet. You can do the Padlet too, that's fine. An extra thing that's not part of question formulation technique, that depending on what tool you're using, you can actually upvote and have the students score each other. Like, hey, this is a 5-star question, or this is a 3-star question, or this is a thumbs up or a thumbs down question, depending, again, on the tool that you're using. All these options are available to you. So hopefully you're sharing out in the chat, and we're having a wildly informative discussion about this robot in my room. Like I said, the last step is reflection, but I'm going to add a step here because I know all of you are super curious about why a robot came to my door at this hotel. And so here, I'm going to show you what it looks like, and you can hear the video play, and maybe it'll give you a little bit more hint as to what's going on. A robot is waiting outside my door. Well, hello, butler. Okay, let's see what's inside. Oh, look at that. The butler brought me breakfast. So it was a robot delivery of my breakfast. It was room service. That's what it was. So I'm still here, obviously, so it wasn't hostile. And it went on. It actually asked me how my stay was going. It told me to remove my items, and then it said, how's your stay? And I gave it 5 stars, and you can't hear it, but he gave this nice little woo whistle kind of thing, an R2-D2. Now I wish I'd given him 1 star because I wanted to hear if it went wah, wah, or something else. And then it asked if I wanted anything else, and I said no, and off he went. I wanted to order room service like 4 more times just to interact with the robot butler, but I didn't because it's not cheap. But that was why a robot came to my door. So I, for one, welcome our robot overlords, but thankfully I didn't have to that day. And as I mentioned, the 4th and final step of question formulation technique is reflect. And this relates to Ramsey's 3 rules in the sense that reflection is key. So ask yourself, and you can put your responses in chat, how did the question formulation technique, or QFT, change your discussion or change your thinking? Think about that. Put your answers down in the chat, and we'll engage in some more conversation. But what I love about this is it gets kids thinking. It gets them thinking deeper than they would have, and it gets them diving into a problem or a challenge or something mysterious and exploring new dimensions that they wouldn't have discovered otherwise. By the way, for the Q focus, you can use a picture, a video like I did, a word or a phrase. About the only thing they recommend you don't use is a question itself. It shouldn't be a question. So just to give you some ideas on what that Q focus is. And again, I have that article on Edutopia. You could dive in deeper to where Lainey and I explain the nuances of the QFT process. Hopefully it's given you enough time to do your own metacognition. And I will move us along here. So where I think that Jamf makes an interesting addition to this equation is in the use of the Jamf Teacher and the Jamf Student apps. And these 2 apps, if you don't know, they come free with Jamf Pro or School, and they're available for all the educators in the district at no additional charge. And so what you can do for the teaching team that you have in your school or district is empower them with Jamf Teacher. What Jamf Teacher does is it allows them to communicate directly with students individually. So those introverts in the classroom feel that they've connected with the teacher. The extroverts, of course, they're shooting all their answers in that communication back and forth. You can also limit which apps they have access to. You can have them open up a browser. You can limit which websites they will visit. All of this contributes to QFT because what it does is it focuses the student's attention on asking questions, on trying to seek the answers. And by staying in the question, you're really unlocking student achievement. You're unlocking their creativity. It's true like in an improv show when you see a performer stand on the edge of the stage and ask the audience to shout out, an occupation, a location, a relationship. And then the actors and the performers take those limitations that you've given them and they unleash their creativity by operating within those limitations. It's called finitude, or the state of having limits placed on you, in that case, willingly. And what we're doing with this tool is locking down the machine so that students focus and their creativity is unleashed because now they're working within those constraints. So I'll show you a little bit about these tools. Jamf Teacher is designed to meet the needs of school practitioners, as I've just described. And there's dozens of other ways to use that tool. You can create lessons on it, share them with each other. I can show you here a couple more of the controls. Prepare classes and lessons in advance, as I just mentioned. Have a remote class session, message students, like I talked about with QFT. And of course, set those limitations, establish finitude, and unleash their creativity. You'll also see some messages can be initiated by teachers and students. You can send to individual students. You can send to small groups, entire classes. So QFT operates within a group structure. So once everyone brainstorms individual questions, you put them into groups and have them pick their favorite or most important question from that group. So you can, again, facilitate that through Jamf Teacher. And Jamf Student operates by allowing students to lock in themselves and focus their attention when they're trying to get work done on their device, iPad, perhaps at home, working on homework. And one way to learn more about Jamf Teacher, Jamf School, and all of these apps is by signing up to become one of the first kids on your block to be a Jamf educator. And what Jamf Educator is a learning platform for educators that allows you to go through and learn more about Jamf School and specifically Jamf Teacher, Parent, and Student apps so that you understand how these tools can be used in ways like I've described and thousands more. Once you go through the process, there's 4 stops on this train ride to get your educator track completed. And when you do complete it, you earn the Jamf Educator Badge and you get a certificate as well. I've gone through it and I was the first kid on my block, so my mom's proud. And I encourage all of you to do the same. But what if you're not in the teacher role anymore? What if you've left the classroom and you've moved into an instructional coach role or a trainer role? Well, have no fear. We've got a track just for you. It's called the EdTech Coordinator track. And you can go through that program as well. It also has 4 stops, but it's geared towards you and the type of people that offer training and that sort of thing. When you finish that, you get a badge. And this is what the interface looks like. Here's what the badge looks like. And I encourage you to go off and get that. It costs nothing. It gives you all these extra resources and a learning platform that you can go back to again and again. There's resources in there as well once you've earned that badge that you can use. Just go to Apple's website to find resources for teachers and for ed tech instructional coaches and trainers and more. Go check it out. So hopefully I've accomplished my goal. Hopefully I've taught you something. Hopefully I've made you chuckle or at least crack a smile by delighting you. And but I haven't given you anything yet. How am I going to give something to you? You said you're pre-recording this, Mike. You don't even know who I am. How are you possibly going to send me a gift? Aha, well, here it is. Earlier, I talked to you about INTERROBANG, and I'm sure all of you were wondering, yeah, Mike, but how do I get that on my iPhone? How do I get that on my iPad? How can I get that on my Mac? Well, here's how you do it. So you're going to search on your favorite web browser for the word INTERROBANG, and it will bring up images of INTERROBANG. And what you're going to look for is an actual instance of a text INTERROBANG somewhere on a website somewhere. It's on the Wikipedia page, if that helps you. And you copy that text. It has to be a text, though. It can't be an image or this won't work. And then here's how you do it. So this is my gift to you. This will repeat. So if it's going too fast for you, it's going too fast for me. Have no fear. But on your iPad, you'll go into Keyboard, General, and then you'll choose Text Replacement. And then you need to put in a phrase, and that is the INTERROBANG. And then the shortcut is like the trigger that will trigger it. And so what you're watching is a looped video of me adding it twice to my iPad. Why twice? Because I didn't want to worry about whether I put the question mark first or the exclamation mark first. So I just did it twice. That way, whatever order I type these things in, it triggers the INTERROBANG going in. And then you can see I go to messages and I send an INTERROBANG to my friend Glenn. It was early in the morning, and I'm sure I was annoying him as I was doing this. But hey, I needed to record this video so I could give a gift to all of you, so it was worth it. But go ahead and watch this or rewind it if you need to see it and walk yourself through that step. And there it is. Here I am texting it to Glenn, and off I go. So that's my gift to you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your attention and for engaging, hopefully in the chat and on the Padlet. And I hope that you have many, many more years of very productive questioning. Stay in the question. Have a great rest of your day, JNUC. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person. Yes. Take care, everybody.